You work hard for your warehouse, but is your technology working as hard as you do? Don't you think your warehouse deserves that? Find that technology work ethic with the EPG One Unified Supply Chain Execution Suite that's built to arm warehouse leaders with tech that powers competitive edge. With modular solutions for WMS, WCS, TMS, workforce, doc, 3PL billing, control tower, and the number one voice picking solution named Lydia Voice, the EPG One suite gives you tech that works harder for your warehouse and the agility to help you scale with confidence and be built for what's next. Smarter, connected, and harder working logistics starts at EPG.com. That's EPG.com.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. And on today's episode, I got another podcaster joining me. I'm going to have Ben Hopkins, the founder and creator of the Warehouse Underground, join me. And we're going to hear a little bit about his story, a little similar to mine in a sense. He's working in the warehouse during the day, dealing with operations, and started this podcast recently called the Warehouse Underground and community as well, which we'll dig into what it's all about with Ben. He can probably explain it better than me, I'm sure. But, you know, starting this thing and getting it done in the evenings as well, much like I did starting the new warehouse. So I'm really excited to talk to him and learn about his journey, his thoughts on the industry right now, and he gives some great tips too from time to time. So hopefully you'll drop some of those as well here from an operations perspective. So Ben, how are you, sir? Welcome to the show.
Kevin, I'm doing awesome, man. I'm excited, grateful, and honored to be on the New Warehouse Podcast. So thank you again for having me on. I really do appreciate it. I mean that.
Definitely. I appreciate that. And you know, happy to get you on. I love what you're doing. And, you know, definitely we've been talking a little bit here and there, but I'm happy to sit down and maybe record this conversation, right? And get a little deeper and share this with other people too, that I think will find very valuable to listen to the Warehouse Underground as well. So why don't you kind of tell us a little bit about your background? Obviously it's in warehousing, right? But tell us a little bit about your background and maybe how you kind of got into warehousing in the first place as well, and how that's kind of developed over your career.
Yeah. So I feel like a little bit as if I've led two lives. And I'm on the second half of my life now. The first half of my life, I was actually an Air Force officer. So I was in the Air Force for 10 years. I graduated from the Air Force Academy in 2003, and actually was a weapons systems officer in F-15E Strike Eagles, if you can believe that. Like completely different world from warehousing. But I got out of the military in early 2013, and I'd always had an ops background. Right? I was a management major in college, and I liked operations and business. And so I was still very interested in that. Plus, at that time in my life, I had a new baby. We had a son, and
Sure.
we were very geographically tied. We kind of wanted to be living closer in the Southeast. Georgia's where I'm from, to be closer with family with that. So I don't remember how I found out about it, but somehow I became aware that Amazon had a big new fulfillment center in Spartanburg, South Carolina, which was fairly close to where I lived or wanted to live at the time. And so they said, hey, there's a Service Academy career conference going on out in San Diego. Amazon's there. We want you to go meet us, interview. the whole bit. And so I went and talked with Amazon. They're a very military friendly company.
Mhm.
And plus they're on the cutting edge of ops. And so I went and talked with them and we hit it off, and that was the beginning. So I started off my career as a manager in Amazon SV, Spartanburg, South Carolina. So.
Very nice, definitely, and thank you for your service, of course. And I think it's very interesting there because we see, I'm sure you see too, like a lot of people from the service end up going into like logistics operations, and I'm curious your thoughts on that, and like what parallels do you see between like being in the service and some of the things that you see also like within the operations world?
Yeah, I think obviously, and I've told people this before, there's no direct correlation between an F-15 and an Amazon SV. So, right? So
I see that, yeah.
there's no need to do any of the things that you do inside an F-15 in an Amazon SV. But I will say that a lot of the soft skills transfer over very well. So in the fighter squadron community, it runs on time a lot. Time is very important in everything that we do, and that's how it was in an Amazon FC as well. The pace and the tempo of the life was very similar, and I think that's why a lot of vets kind of gravitate towards this industry, because they like that tempo and that pace, and it rewards that. It rewards people that are into that. But I think some of the differences were, like my diversity spectrum of the people that I worked with went from very narrow in the military in a fighter community to very broad inside of an Amazon fulfillment center, which had people from all walks of life in there. And so that took me a little bit of time to get adjusted to, but the rest of it, the pace and the tempo and the attention to detail and the timing and all that match, I think, for the two industries.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. No, I would say like, warehouses and are some of the most diverse places I think you could be. I mean, I've learned most of my Spanish from working in the warehouse, and I've eaten some amazing food from lots of different countries in my warehouse days too, as people brought things in. But really interesting there. So I'm curious. You've been in this world for some time now, and obviously very passionate about it. If you're going to start a podcast about it, I would know, but, so tell us a little bit about like, what's your take on the warehousing industry right now? Cause, obviously since you started in it, a lot has changed for sure.
Yeah. I think it is a super exciting time to be in the warehouse and distribution industry. I think if you look at how it was maybe 25 years ago, the term warehouse conjured up sort of this old dusty environment, and the big guys on the forklifts is back there driving around, and which is sort of a cost center only for our organization. 2 to 4 weeks for delivery, put box on shelf, take box off shelf. That's how the warehouse was. But now, in today's day and age, it is on the cutting edge of technology. I mean, I know you go to ProMat and Modex and you see everything that's there, and also the amount of talent of the people, of the individuals, of the leaders, of the employees that work in the industry, I think is way higher now than it was back then, whether that's coming right out of college or moving in from another industry, coming out of the military. I mean, I think the bar has really been raised in terms of that. And I think that's raised the wages too, in a way. If you follow DC Velocity or read their magazine, you see that the wages in the industry are going up because the consumer, the American consumer, has grown accustomed to this type of fulfillment, right? That they need it. So that the economy is expecting this, and that's driving up the expectation, that's driving up the demand, but that's also driving up the wages. And then that brings in more talent, more talented people in the tech and all that with the industry. So I think it's just a great time to be in the industry because it's at the beginning of just this giant golden age of everything swarming in there at one time, and almost all of it is good stuff, both for the consumer and the people that work into it and the people that are coming into it. So great time to work in distribution, much better than 25 years ago for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, and I agree. I mean, I think that's I just got off a call with somebody like an hour ago and was telling them I think one of the most exciting things about the industry is like there's all this technology, right? And it's finding like a practical home, like in the warehouse environment, which I think is really, really cool. But you touched on something there I think is interesting, right? That these wage rates are increasing, but there's a lot of discussion around, shortage in labor, right? And finding people that actually want to work in the warehouse, even though these wages have increased, right? And I know, my experience in like during COVID, we saw like wages really take off because the demand was just so high, trying to get people to come in and work. But what do you see from that perspective on your end? Because you're still living this on a daily basis, right? So what are you seeing in terms of being able to not only like attract new labor, but also then like retain labor too? I mean, is it super competitive out there? What are you finding?
One of the key factors on that, and I actually had an event where we talked about this at the Warehouse Underground. We had a live event where we talked about labor retention and the whole thing. And, there's some common themes that always come up. Training is the big one. Everybody wants to be trained. They want to get better. They want to get more breadth and expand their sphere of influence, if you will. And so I think that is something that all warehouse leaders out there should keep in mind when they're managing all their employees. And that inherently is pay is obviously the number one thing that people care about, but quickly coming up into second place is their development and their knowledge gain and their information gain. And that's where I think if you look at the ops world, it's all about meeting the customer demand, right? All about running an efficient operation, all these things. But in a way, if you neglect the development of the team members, if you neglect their progression, in a way that's going to harm you. You think, oh well, I don't have time to do this, right? I need to save time because my employees need to be on the floor and they need to be producing, and I don't have time for it. But then if you don't take time for it, you're going to spend all your time hiring new folks because they're the ones that are going to a different place where they can get that, because they know that the industry is so competitive, right? The market is so competitive now, and it's much harder to differentiate yourself from your peers. And so the way to differentiate yourself from your peers is to gain more of that breadth of knowledge, to have more of those feathers in your cap that you can then go obviously use at the company that you're at. But if you want to, you can test the market and find that, wow, I'm very valuable now at company X, which is down the road. I'm going to see what they're all about down there. So I think that's kind of how it all ties together. And that's good, right? It's good. It's good for the employee out there, but it's also challenging for some of the leaders to lose their folks. But
yeah, definitely. And I think that's such a great point, because I think, I mean, I've certainly seen like a ton of people that I think have found a job in a warehouse and, don't have like an extensive educational background or much experience, but have been able to work their way up, right. And get to like a really nice job, right. I've seen people that have started as like a forklift operator and have made it up to be the GM of that building, like years later. Right. But so what do you think and how do you kind of navigate this, right? If, you're saying people want development, right? They want to be able to train, they want to increase their skills and the abilities that they can do within that operation. How do you set up a program to do that? And then I think, secondly, how do you communicate that to people that you're trying to hire or trying to like attract to the job? Is that's like a benefit that they're going to have here versus somewhere down the road?
We'll be back after a quick break.
Are you asking the question, where's my stuff, too often? Whether it's in your own warehouses, from your suppliers, or in your customer network, if you're not sure where your stuff is, then Surge Air has the solution for you. With Surge Air's 99.9% accuracy, you're getting more than just supply chain visibility. You're getting the ability to orchestrate your supply chain and guide decisions in real time. Reduce the chaos in your supply chain and find operational truth with Surge Air. Find your visibility and learn more at surgeair.com. That's surgeair.com.
Yeah, I think it may depend on the size of the company that you're working at, because obviously the big, well-known companies are going to have an advertised program,
Mm,
and people will know about the advertised program that they do there. They'll know about the benefits that are provided. They'll know about the engagement and all those things. If not from advertisements from the company, they'll know it just sort of through word of mouth or through
mm,
social media, or they'll see reviews on Glassdoor. I mean, that's a real reality today. So I think for them, it's not so much of an emphasis because they've just got this program in place and they just sort of execute it. It has the resources behind it. It is what it is. I think where more of the challenge is sort of some of the mid-tier companies or some of the smaller companies that have
mm,
a warehousing component as part of that. It's much more work for them to do that. But I think step number one is you have to make a decision inside that organization that it matters to you, that it
mm,
matters to you enough that we're going to put some money behind it. We're going to budget for it. We're going to have a marketing plan that feeds it. Because if it's just surface level, if you just say, yeah, well, we care about our employees here and their development, but the employees are looking to say like, okay, well, so what? Like show me.
mm.
Here's what they have up here. So if they can't see it, I think you're at a loss. So that's step number one. I think is determine that it matters to you for real, that you're willing to budget it, and then kind of the steps can start falling into place after that, right?
Mm.
The visuals that they can see, the testimonials that they can see. YouTube. I've seen a rise in YouTube videos where people have testimonials from employees that work inside their facilities
Mm.
and those types of things. So I think much harder for the smaller level companies, but they can do it if they are willing to take those steps and kind of meet the person, meet the market where they're at, like what matters to them, what they care about, what language they speak, what
Mm.
social media they're on. If you can do that, I think you're there. And then obviously when they're in there, you have to execute on it.
Yeah.
Right? You have to have a thorough onboarding program and a thorough training program and an opportunity to move up and interview in the next level position. And all those things matter, I think. But all those things put together, I feel like you can have a very competitive labor retention program and competing.
Very kind of valuable insights and tips there, because I think that's one of the things. I mean, we see so much stuff about labor shortage and things like that, but the other big issue there is the retention, right? Like get them in the door. You don't want them going back out the door, right? You want to try and keep them in. And I think that's a huge point. I saw that too in my career as well, where, people were like, what's next for me? Like, how do I grow? Right. And how do I do that? And formalizing that process and being able to have some understanding or like transparency on that, I think makes a huge difference. And I like your thoughts there too.
And I
like
think too, I
sharing the
think that's
story.
where I think in this industry, and you kind of brought this up, and it is true, and I agree with this. It's so diverse. I
Yeah.
mean, inside the world of FCs, it's so diverse, and I think as leaders, that means that you can't necessarily just have one leadership style that you
Mm,
use and it's going to work, because you've got so many different people from so many different backgrounds. They all care about different things. They're all motivated by different things. And so I think for leaders out there, you really need to be able to be pliable, right?
mm,
To mold a leadership style and meet employees where they are, to figure out what is going to be best for them. Now, I'm not saying to be a chameleon, right?
mm.
That's not it.
Yeah.
But you must accept the fact that so many different people are motivated by different things. And then as a leader, I think that can help you know, okay, this employee needs development in their whatever, in their
Mm,
performance, their attention to detail, or this employee looks like they want to become a manager. So I'm going to teach them about labor hours and how to engage employees, or whatever it may be. And so the leaders out there identify that. And then, you know, it's very tempting, I think, when you work inside the four walls of a FC, that you stunt your growth a little bit
mm,
in terms of what's going on out there in the big world of warehousing, because you just get focused on, well, I'm running my shift and I'm hitting my numbers and I'm developing my team, but you're missing out on all the things like what's on the New Warehouse podcast or the Warehouse Underground podcast.
yeah.
Like, what about WMS, and what about automation, and what about racking, and what about all these things that, hey, man, I might be able to drop some of this on some employees that could really benefit. And now they're much smarter and much wiser. So there's a lot more things to think about than just running your shift.
Yeah.
In this world, but you won't know about that unless you really kind of seek it out in different avenues to find that and meet people where they are and see if they're into it. They might be.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's such a great point because there are so many, very diverse environment, but even like in personality wise too, as well. Yeah. Right. And, being able to, understand and have some of that like emotional intelligence, right? To be able to understand like this is what makes this person tick, right? And this person, they're not going to react to like that type of approach, right? But they are going to react to something like this. So I'm curious, like you touched on a good point there where, there's oftentimes like say like a laser focus, but maybe like a little bit of tunnel vision in a sense, right? Where you're just like, okay, this is my operation. All of these are the boxes that have to go out today. Like, let's get them out. And then that's it, right? But then you're not thinking outside of that of like, what could I, learn from somebody else's operation? What could I learn for somebody else that's in the industry? What could I learn from a resource? Like you said, at what point in your career did you kind of open up your mind a little more to say like, oh, let me seek out some other resources, or let me explore some other things and, do some learnings on my own, or maybe during, your normal work time, like to be able to expand like your knowledge in that way and see like what other options are there to make my operation better?
Yeah, I remember. So when I was running ops inside of Amazon, you are on the cutting edge, right? Like you're on the cutting edge, and Amazon is well known and the whole 9 yards, right? But at the same time, though, you don't necessarily know that much about distribution. You know how to maximize your operation and maximize your shift. But when I left Amazon, I was recruited out of it, and I went to become a director of distribution in charge of ops for a family-owned company. I quickly realized that I really didn't know anything. If you take away all the tools and the resources that are available to you inside of an Amazon FC, and you sort of have to build up this environment from the ground up, you quickly find out that, oh my gosh, man, I really don't know that much at all. And I remember when I went to that company, one of the things that happened at about my first year was a WMS implementation. And I thought I knew some things about WMS because I used Amazon and everything. And then I didn't. I mean, it went very bad for me, the implementation of that. And I was sort of in charge, and I had a lot of pain points. And that was always in the back of my mind about, man, how did I not know that? And there was no resources online available to go see. There's no WMSimplementation.com, right? Where you can go figure out how that, and I didn't have a big network at that time. And I just sat there and just struggled in the own thing. And so in the back of my mind for years, I thought one day I would really like to create this, right? I would really like to create this website that can be that resource for people, right? That can have a podcast with Casey Winans, who is a WMS consultant on there, and alleviate some of this. Yeah, great guy. Love it. My very first guest, right?
Yeah.
But it can alleviate some of that unknown and some of that pain that's out there from some lower level leaders. So that's why I built the Warehouse Underground, is to be that kind of that resource and that platform and that place where people can go and learn and network and do all the things that really I didn't have. Because Kevin, I mean, you probably know this. In other industries out there that's not warehousing and distribution, they have tons of resources online. Pick an industry: sales, marketing, HR. I mean, podcasts galore, groups galore, websites. You get into the world of distribution center outside of the new warehouse and maybe a couple others. It's not that much. And I thought, how could this be? I mean, there's so many people across the country, across the globe, really, that work in this industry. Why is there not more resources for them online, right? Why are there not more groups and networking and podcasts and everything? And so I thought, I would think the reason why this is because the nature of the people that work in fulfillment centers is very gritty, right? It's very gritty. They have to be very resourceful. They don't make a lot of excuses. They put their heads down. They go to work inside their SC, and they don't really spend time like networking and being on computer and everything like that. And so in a way, it works at their own detriment, right? So that attitude, that type mentality can hurt them, I think, in the long run. And so it's like, hey, when I found the New Warehouse podcast, I think I stumbled across your podcast maybe 10 months ago. I thought it was awesome, right? I still do think it's awesome.
Yeah,
it's a great thing. And so I'm like, hey, I think we should do more things like this out there that can really benefit the community and shine a light on them. I mean, there's some supremely talented, incredible, sharp people that are out there. Let's shine a light on them and let, other industries see just what they're capable of doing. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that because I resonate with that so much. I mean, that's kind of it's very similar to my thinking as well, to starting the New Warehouse. I was, at the time, I don't know what kind of like came over me, but I think I was, for a while, like I got into the industry and I was still kind of like, I don't know if this is going to be my long-term thing that I'm going to do, and but then at some point I think I was like, I think I'm going to commit like mentally, right, to this. And I was like, I need to learn more about the industry. And it was, the same thing. Like, I'm like, there's nothing interesting out here to like learn from or digest. And, it was like old trade publications, maybe just regurgitated online. And, I was like late 20s at the time. So I'm like, that's not really interesting to me. Right. And I was thinking like, hey, if I never think outside of like my operation, like we just talked about, like I probably like would never even discover like some of these other solutions that like potentially we could utilize or, could improve our operation, unless they just kind of, came across my desk or through an email or something, or just by happenstance, like did that. And that's kind of like how, it kind of came about. But I mean, I love that, you're also, thinking in that same way and, building the Warehouse Underground. So I mean, I guess tell us exactly what is the Warehouse Underground?
Warehouse Underground, it's a website. I really think of it as like a community square. That's what I'm trying to make, like a community square for people that are in the industry or connected to the industry. It has a community, has message boards in there, like I said, live events. There's posts in there that are similar to what a LinkedIn might be, although it's curated specifically for the people in the industry. Almost all my LinkedIn posts that I make also double inside the community there. It has the podcast series, which I know that they've seen, the Warehouse Underground podcast. It has the Tiger Team, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about in the end, which is kind of the funny, lighthearted part about it. But yeah, it's just a place, a community, a town square that I wanted to make for the distribution community that they could call their own. Look cool, had cool graphics, the functionality of it was cool. All those things where people can learn, grow, get better, network, communicate. And then for the guests that come in, they get an opportunity to have sort of this very unique niche clientele that is the audience, which is really just people that are in fulfillment centers across the globe. And they can say, I'm going to come pitch my ideas directly to them through the Warehouse Underground. And then sort of the idea is that it then becomes a flywheel. The more people that come in and join, the more people will want to come in and talk in front of them, and off we go. So that was kind of the genesis of the idea of the Warehouse Underground. And, it's been pretty well received so far. We have almost 170 members that have signed up for the community past year. We hope to maybe double that next year, and lots of cool new podcasts, guests on the future. And, not that this matters, Kevin, this shouldn't matter, but I am solely doing this for the community. Right? That is my sole motivating factor, is the people that are out there that missed out on opportunity or didn't get to network or didn't get the knowledge. I'm doing it for them. And I haven't taken a cent from running it. And in fact, I put money in it. I have a luxury that, I do this in addition to my day job, so I can kind of I can kind of fund it, but it's all for them, and so that's the creation of the Warehouse Underground and what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's great. And I got to give you like major kudos because I know how hard that is. Like when I started podcast, I was doing the same thing. Like I was, working the day job and then, coming home at night and figuring out a podcast, editing, trying to do some work on lunch break in between and all those things. And I know that's like a lot of work. So I love that you're so passionate about it and that you're motivated to do it for the community.
Funny story about that. So sure. I do this as my second job, not job, my second side hustle, I guess you call it. So I'm driving home from work one day, and I'm on a conference call with my work, but it's one of those conference calls that you really don't need to be a part of. Just sort of half-heartedly listen. But I'm coming home, and I have one of my first podcasts that night. And so on the way home, Kevin, I'm like practicing the intro for the podcast. Welcome to the Warehouse Underground. Here's the guest today, the whole thing. Except I was not on mute for my company conference call with about 50 people. So I just hear, what was that? What was that? And I look down and I think, so I'm like, I don't know. I think it was some like interference or something with another cell phone signal. There, no. You were saying something about the underground and the warehouse. I'm like, yeah, I think the metrics are bad. I think they're underwater at the facility, so we need to. Like, I'm just completely to try to say move on. That I'm not giving my intro to my podcast on a company call.
Yeah. I like that. So that's very funny, but I like that preparation. That's good. That's good. So very interesting. I mean, how you kind of come to develop this thing. And I think really, really great that you're building the community. Because I do think like, there is a gap there a little bit. Like where can these people connect? Like, and like who's, so I guess maybe people that are listening that are familiar or like want to join the community, like who's like the ideal community member?
It's really everyone. I mean, so Kevin, I've had hourly employees reach out to me and join the community, and they want to learn more about being a manager or being a floor lead or something like that in a facility. I have directors that are members. I've got a couple of VPs and a couple of execs. So it's just you never know. I mean, you run a community like this that's kind of throwing a broad net out over all things distribution and fulfillment. I never know. Some people I've had some people that are job searching, and so they look at me and say, "Hey, do you know of any openings? Can you help me find anything?" I do get that sometimes, but mostly it's people I think that honestly feel like they don't have their voice heard out there in the industry. Like I work in a warehouse industry and I am second fiddle because the sales team and the marketing team at my company is getting all the hype. And I always feel like I'm just the guy in the warehouse, like the Warehouse in the Office. If you've ever watched that show, down in the bottom. And I came across the Warehouse Underground and I thought, man, this is awesome. I can come in here, I can post, I can learn. And it's people that speak my language, right? I don't have to filter what I say or what I request. It's kind of an unfiltered back and forth about the real gritty things that are going on in the industry. And I think that type of mentality is going to appeal to people all over the spectrum, because I think they're really finding a lot of value in that, and it's a place for them and a home for them and a place that they can feel comfortable in and that they can be proud of, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's great because I think even hearing that you have like the hourly workers in there too, because like I think it's great to have like some kind of sounding board, right? It's like because I've seen some stuff definitely from hourly workers where they're like, like, oh, I'm going through this. Is this like normal, right? Or something like that, just to get kind of like some feedback there. Like, are they, maybe in like a bad like culture, right? In the warehouse, right? And like, oh, like that's not normal, right? Like, you should be looking at something like this, or like, oh, here's an opportunity over here. I think like that community is great to put that. And like you said, like so often, right? The shine gets put on like the sales and the marketing and things like that. But at the end of the day, like, the warehouse is really the ones that are delivering the products and making it actually
And
happen. Yeah.
people bring up anything in there. I mean, people will bring up, hey, how do I control inventory?
Mm.
How do I do cycle counts?
Yeah.
How do I do this? Or a high level, like, how do I excel in my career? How do I play the political game inside of a FC and all those type things? And so sometimes I have things for people, I can offer them insights. Other times I can't, but I can put you in touch with somebody that I'm networked with that's also in the community that, might be able to help you. If I know that.
Yeah, definitely. So, so you mentioned the Tiger team in there, and I've been loving the Tiger team, I gotta say. So tell us, I guess first tell us for people that maybe are not familiar, what is the Tiger team? And then, are you going to tell us who the co-host is? The mystery co-host?
Okay. So, the Tiger team is okay. So I have the professional podcast.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Done 20 episodes, 20th episode released today. Very professional. People learn stuff, it helps in their career. So the Tiger team is something that I really debated on whether or not I was going to do and launch, but it is a lighthearted show on things that are happening inside warehouses, DCs, and FCs across the country with really a wit and humor and sarcastic slant on it. And so but my wife is like, you shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do this show because you're going to say something on here that you can't take back. You're going to regret. And I'm like, first of all, she doesn't listen to any of my shows, Kevin, because she doesn't listen to any of my podcasts because she says, why do you don't sound like that? Like, why are you talking like that? I'm like, well, I mean, I'm on the camera and you got to heighten your voice a little bit. She's like, Kevin Lawton doesn't do that. And he's going to do 700 shows this year. I'm like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Are you saying that you like the new Warehouse podcast better than the Warehouse Underground podcast?
I don't mean to start fights over there.
So if warehouses or sexy shirts start showing up in my laundry, Kevin, it's going to be on. No, but the thought behind the Tiger Team show is it's like, imagine you're in the break room with just your peer or just your friend at a facility that is intense and high pressure. You're probably not going to be talking about the stuff you see on LinkedIn, like how to do leadership and all this stuff. You're just going to be letting it rip, shooting it with your friend, and that's what happens on the Tiger Team. So it's all those things. And I have a co-host. Her name's Jordan. She she wants to remain anonymous, Kevin, because she is young in her fulfillment center career. She's out there, she's working, but she doesn't want to say something. So I'm like, all right. Although I'll say this, she has given some thumbs up on some of the posts that I've made about the Tiger Team. So if you really wanted to know who she is, you could probably figure it out. But yeah, she's great. She's very good natured, doesn't take herself too seriously, and really we just speak for what other people are already going through and saying out there in the industry. And it's worth a good laugh. So I think people should definitely check that show out. For some fun.
Yeah, definitely. Highly recommend. I mean, I listen to them and I'm like, if you've worked in warehousing or work in warehousing, like you're going to be like, oh yeah. Like you're going to be like relating so much. Like I think they're very, very funny and super relatable. So I love it. So I hope it keeps going. Definitely. And Jordan,
it's really only for warehouse people.
It is definitely. Yeah. I will agree there for sure. And Jordan, we're going to have to do some digging. We'll figure that one out. But, I think very interesting here. And so now if we look at like the industry as a whole, right, what is your one kind of take on the industry right now? Like, where do you think the industry could do better, or do you think it's doing great? What's one thing that's like, this is the industry to me right now?
I think one of the biggest challenges that is going on out there in the industry, in my opinion, is the drastic fluctuation and the variability in customer demand. right? If you look at fulfillment centers, a lot of them today take after lean methodology and Six Sigma and the whole thing, but those have their background in manufacturing for the most part. And manufacturing is standard. It tries to be repeatable with not much variability. And so they get applied to the world of FCs, which is inherently high in variability because it depends on who, the customer. And customers are, you never know what they're going to do. And sometimes this is week by week, sometimes day by day, sometimes hour by hour in big time FCs. Now, do I think that AI and machine learning and the things like that can help sort of smooth out some of that predictability? Yeah, I do. I think there is some chance for that. But I think for FCs out there, that's the hardest thing to manage because the variable that does not change is the expectation that the customer has, that the consumer has, that they're going to get their delivery. No executive is going to allow that to slip. So some other variable that's controlled by the leadership inside the warehouse or the DC must change. And that's usually longer labor hours, or we got to figure out how to make our processes faster or something. But that can sometimes have downstream unintended consequences that come from it. I'm working longer hours, and so now I don't have as much time for development. Now my employees' morale goes down because they're away from home more. Now my safety risk goes up because they're working longer. And so I think that is just the big challenge is running your op, planning for the variability and your staffing so that if you have a 4-cylinder engine and you find yourself in a race that day where you need a V8, that you're still able to do that. And then vice versa, if you're staffed for a V8 and you only need to run it at a 4-cylinder, can you come down to that and still be lean, right? Still hit your cost per unit, still hit all the profitability metrics that you want to hit while achieving that customer demand. So I think out there across the industry, that's the thing that I hear from most, other than running out of space, which comes up too a lot. It's, man, I'm getting jockeyed all over the place by this crazy demand from customers, and my employees are feeling the brunt of that because I can't let up. We still have to achieve the expectation that they have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that those variability kind of switching up and down certainly is difficult to navigate. And like you said, right, like, do I push my employees like to this point, or, do I keep a buffer of employees that I'm kind of like losing money on a little bit because I know the demand is going to go back up, and, all these different variables that are in there. So we're really interesting there. And I'm curious too, like, what's your take on like automation and robotics in the warehouse?
So my take on automation, and I've had a couple of people on the podcast about that, and I've had different opinions. So I think my take on is that it is the future, I think, in the world of fulfillment, right? Just as flat screen TVs used to only be for the rich kid that lived in your neighborhood. There's like one guy that had a flat screen TV. Now everyone has them. The cost has came down far enough, and the familiarity with it is so much that everyone has it. I could see that happening with automation and robotics in FCs. How long it takes for that to happen, I'm not sure. If you go to the trade shows, and we've all heard this joke, ProMat is a robotic show now when you go there. But there's still a place for, I think, pure leadership, pure performance from the employees, pure performance from the managers out there throughout the industry. And so I think that's where executives and directors have to really wear two hats and say, I need to be moving the long-term needle over here with what's coming down the pipe. Because if I don't, I'm going to be left behind really fast, because this stuff can move really fast and then it's difficult to catch back up. But I also have to still make investments in developing my team and ensuring that they're engaged in development and performing. And that's the challenge now for directors, because I think we're right in the middle of those 2 points. It's like beepers are going away, the iPhones are coming in, and we're like right at the beginning phase when the first iPhone came out. I think that's how I see the world of operation out there for warehousing.
Interesting. Yeah. I think it's there's still ways to go, even though like it's everywhere, like you see it everywhere. Like I feel like that's a lot of marketing, right, and hype a little bit around the actual percentage of people that are actually like looking at this, investing and implementing, right, at the end of the day. And the last question I'll ask you, what solution or technology in the warehouse space really has your attention right now?
So I think LMS, labor management systems are on the rise. For a long time, it was a WMS. Everybody wanted WMS. Everybody's getting them. Now that everybody has those, they want to take it the next level. And if you look at it, Kevin, too, I think another thing that happens is there's so much turnover now in the industry with the managers and the leaders. I mean, take Amazon, for example. They have a high turnover with a lot of their managers. But what that means is that all those ops managers, all those areas managers, all those senior ops, they're going out and now they're leaders at family-owned companies or private equity-held companies. And they want to know, why don't we have a labor management system here? The labor management system that I was using at Amazon was my Bible, right? Like this is how I was running the whole shift and the whole operation to know where we were. And we don't have that here. So I think you'll start to see those kind of begin to rise with Tact and Easy Metrics and the like as people want to go through the next phase within the WMS. And robotics and automation, I'm probably not the best person to offer up an opinion on that. I'll kind of leave that to you. But definitely, I think in the software wise, I think you'll see a big rise in labor management system, particularly as the demands and the expectation and the profit margins get tighter and tighter and tighter. People are going to want to see, where am I losing, right? Like where am I losing? Where's the waste? Where's the shift or the operation not producing? And the labor management system is a great way to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great one too, because like without that visibility, it becomes so hard to be able to reward and, grow and really understand like, where you're not doing well and where you're doing really well, right? And who's doing really well and how do I make sure they keep doing really well to be able to continue that. So really great insights there. So really appreciate you coming on the show. Great to get you on and hear your whole story and get some of your insights too on the industry as well, which people can get more of on your podcast. So if people want to join the community or they want to listen in to your podcast, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah. So the warehouseunderground.com is a full all-encompassing site. So the podcasts play there, the community's there, very easy to sign up, get in the community with the message boards. The podcast also plays now on YouTube, which means that I'm official with my children now. I have a 6th and 7th grader. They didn't think I was legit until I showed up next to Mr. Beast on YouTube. So now the Warehouse Underground's on YouTube. The Tiger Team plays on Spotify. So you can check out the Tiger Team there, and then all my little clips and little reels and everything is on Instagram. So look for the Warehouse Underground at all those places.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll put all that information at thenewwarehouse.com as well as in the show notes here. And I also have a 6th grader going into 7th grade, and I show him like I'm on YouTube, and he's like, you don't have that many subscribers. I'm like, oh,
why aren't you dropping a Lamborghini if you're like a burning fire?
Yeah. So I always joke with him. I'm like, oh, like and subscribe. But so we'll definitely put all that information there and make sure you're official and all that stuff. So I really appreciate you coming on the show here, Ben, and telling us a little bit about your experience and also the Warehouse Underground, that great community that you're building for our industry.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Enjoyed this episode? Make sure you are subscribed to the podcast, and for more content from the New Warehouse, find us on LinkedIn and YouTube. Links to subscribe can be found in the show notes, and for everything The New Warehouse, head to thenewwarehouse.com.